Open your medicine cabinet right now. A box of Band-Aids, some aspirin, a bottle of hand sanitizer, and a $5 pack of antibiotics. To your modern brain, these are boring, cheap things you buy without thinking. But to your ancestors, this cabinet is a pantry belonging to a literal god. We live in a golden age of invisible safety. We forgot what it feels like to be completely helpless against nature. Because for 99% of human history, the greatest predator of our species didn't have sharp teeth or claws. It didn't make a sound. You couldn't see it, hunt it, or reason with it. And in the year 1347, this invisible killer unlocked a door it was never supposed to open. It arrived to delete half of the human population. To understand how the world ended, we have to travel back to October 1347. Messina, Sicily. 12 Genoese trading ships dock at the harbor after a long journey across the Black Sea. The people on the docks gather around expecting silk, spices, and treasure. But when they look onto the decks, they don't see merchants. They see a ghost ship. Most of the sailors are already dead. The ones still breathing are crawling on their knees, covered from head to toe in mysterious, oozing black boils. The terrified authorities immediately order the ships out of the harbor, but it is already too late. The payload had already crawled ashore. Our stickman is just a regular guy living in this city. He doesn't know what a gene, a cell, or a microbe is. Nobody on Earth does. So when he wakes up the next morning feeling a burning fever, he thinks he just worked too hard. Then he looks in the mirror. Under his arms, giant, painful lumps are growing. They turn purple, then pitch black. The air smells like rotting meat, and the smell is coming from his own body. In 1347, science didn't exist. There was only superstition, panic, and desperate guesses. When the plague hit, the medical elite of the world wrapped themselves in heavy leather coats coated in wax. They wore glass goggles and a massive hollow bird beak. The beak wasn't a fashion statement. It was a primitive gas mask. They stuffed it with crushed mint, cloves, and dried roses because they believed the disease was carried by miasma, bad air. If this nightmare doctor walked into your room today, you would die of a heart attack. But for our stickman, this monster is his only hope. And what is this doctor's top-tier, state-of-the-art medical advice? Let's look at the actual historical records. First, he tries the frog cure. He grabs a live toad from a bucket, presses its slimy belly directly onto the bleeding, open black boils, and holds it there until the toad dies. The doctor nods, believing the frog is absorbing the poison. When it dies, he just reaches for another one. If that fails, it's time for the Vicary method. The doctor takes a live chicken, plucks its backside completely bare, and straps the chicken's bare skin directly to the patient's swollen lymph nodes. The theory was that the chicken would draw out the pestilence. In reality, it just spread animal feces directly into open human wounds. For the ultra-rich, the treatments were even deadlier. Royal physicians would crush rare diamonds, emeralds, and pearls into a powder, mix it into a thick syrup, and force the patient to drink it. The microscopic, sharp edges of the crushed gems literally shredded the patient's stomach lining from the inside out. The cure killed you hours before the plague could. As the death toll grew, the panic evolved into pure insanity. People noticed that the bodies of the dead smelled horrific, so they logicalized, if bad smell causes death, maybe an even worse smell can repel it. Across Europe, millions of people stopped bathing entirely. They believed opening their pores with warm water would let the bad air inside. People began collecting human feces in jars, opening them in their living rooms, and deeply inhaling the scent every morning as a protective shield. They were living in a self-made cloud of human rot, completely blind to the real monster crawling beneath their feet. And then humanity committed its most catastrophic mistake. They looked at the town's cats and dogs and whispered, "The devil's servants." Believing that domestic pets were spreading the plague, the Pope and local leaders ordered a systematic total slaughter of every cat and dog in Europe. Millions of cats were hunted down, beaten, and burned. And with that single action, humans signed their own death warrants. The natural predators of the rat were gone. Within weeks, the black rat population multiplied by the billions. They swarmed the grain stores, crawled into beds, and died in the drinking water. And on those rats were the real executioners, Xenocella siopes, the rat flea. Inside the gut of a tiny flea lived a bacteria called Yersinia pestis. This bacteria is a tactical genius. Once it enters the flea, it multiplies so rapidly that it physically blocks the flea's digestive tract. The flea can no longer swallow any blood. Now, the flea is starving. It is in a state of frenzied panic. It jumps onto the nearest warm body, a human, and bites frantically. But because its stomach is blocked by a wall of bacteria, the blood cannot go down. It vomits the infected blood directly back into the human's bloodstream. One bite. That's all it took. Our stickman is now running out of time. Society is collapsing around him. Law enforcement disappears. Parents abandon their sick children in the streets. Priests refuse to give last rites because they are too terrified to touch the dying. In the midst of this ultimate apocalypse, humanity stumbles upon the only invention that actually works. Not medicine, but space. The city of Venice notices that death arrives on ships. They institute a new rule. Every ship from an infected area must stay anchored off the coast, completely isolated, for 40 days. In their local dialect, 40 days is 40 giorni, the exact origin of your modern word, quarantine. Our shittiest, unluckiest stickman survived the Black Death by doing something brutal. He ran an isolation program. He locked his door, nailed his windows, and treated every other human being like a walking weapon. Because in 1348, love, empathy, or a hug from your mother was a literal death sentence. Today, the Black Death still exists. It is still alive in nature. But if you catch it, you don't call a plague doctor with a chicken. You go to a clean, bright pharmacy, spend $5, and a microscopic pill deletes the monster in days. You live in the safest paradise your ancestors could ever dream of, and you have no idea how rare that is. Our stickman managed to hide from the rats, the fleas, and the toxic cures, but the timeline of human history is unforgiving, and his simulation is about to get much louder.